Good morning, good morning, welcome. I know, everybody's like, I had to do what on a Friday at the Health Science Building? But thank y'all for coming. It took, I had to put this together since we are participating, those of us who are managers or supervisors and participating in having employees participate in the flex work schedule is part of the goal 3 that Dr. Nutt is actually over for the goals for the system about training supervisors who have employees for the flex work in the flex work schedule. So we went over, I believe we even went over and tacked some of the things that supervisors need to know. And Dr. Nutt wanted certain topics to be covered for supervisors to hear as you have employees that are at flex. And this is going to be a 2-part training. I didn't want to take up a whole entire one of your days because it would have been a very long training. So this is just part 1. And part 2, I'm not going to do this to you. Part 2 is going to be virtual, okay, in the spring. So we look on the lookout. We're going to cover the second half of this training. But today, we're just going to go over an introduction to off-site work management with Yvonne from HR. And then we'll have Danielle Miller come in for communication. We'll have Ashley Resendez come in for building trust and engagement. We'll have lunch, so hopefully I tried to get all the people who submitted their lunch requests. It will be here around 11:30. Conflict resolution, Patrick Gilbert will be here, and then Carolyn Williams is here to do mental health and wellness. Also, I just printed out the last 2 pages of that flexible work schedule strategy training that has all of the topics and the objectives that we'll cover. If you notice on the digital copy that I sent you all, there's some links at the bottom. And these links are for you to use for your employees that are participating in flex work. And all these courses are on demand by Udemy. If you haven't experienced Udemy replaced LinkedIn Learning, and it's very, very good. So what we found was there were a whole lot of courses that are on demand for work-life balance, productivity, all the things that an employee may need as they transition into a flexible schedule. How you can track these, so what you can do is you can monitor how many of these you want your employees. If you want 1 up, 2 is completely up to you as a supervisor, how many of these that you want your employees to participate in. You can go look at them first. And what I really love about Udemy is we have a business account, so you as a supervisor can create an account for your team. You put in everybody that's on your team, and every time they take a Udemy course, you get notified that they're in progress or they finished it, and you can track their progress of whatever courses you want them to take. And I could send you directions on how to set up your account through Udemy as a supervisor so that you could track that training, okay? And so all these links are linked in the digital copy. And if you have any questions about that, you can just ask me and I will point you in the right direction and get you started. So I'm all about getting things done and started on time. I know more people might end up coming in, but we're going to let Yvonne get started with Intro to Offsite Work Management.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Hopefully, I think I've met quite a few of you. My name is Yvonne Flores. I'm the HR director here at Tomball. So I will be going over the offsite work management. We don't have a clicker, so.
Oh, that's my job.
Yes. So the intended results for this presentation is to ensure that all supervisors have a clear understanding of effective offsite work management, including setting expectations, maintaining communication, and supporting team engagement. Supervisors should feel confident in their role to foster productivity, accountability, and a positive team culture in offsite work environment. So hopefully this is the goal for today and for the future as a supervisor. So this is a little snapshot kind of the remote work options, or offsite as we call them. It shows a snapshot of what the current and preferred work arrangements are. So if you look at the first blue column there, it says 68.3% of respondents who say most duties can be performed remotely. This is from a survey through Coupa, and that's what the survey said from those that they did speak to through higher ed. And these 2 columns is work arrangement. So their current work arrangement and then the preferred, what they would like to see. So the blue part is completely or mostly remote. So right now we have about 11% who are completely or mostly remote. Now 28% prefer to have that remote or completely remote or like an offsite environment. The green part is hybrid on-site remote. So it's either hybrid or completely remote. 23.7% right now have that type of work engagement arrangement, and then 40.5% would like that in the future. And then the yellow gold overall, which you'll see, is completely or mostly on-site. So no kind of remote or flexibility there. And right now, the environment in higher ed is kind of 65.5%. So it's kind of high there. However, they will 31.29% would like completely or mostly on-site. So still, you know, there's, as you see, there's kind of an even, whereas here current mostly are on-site. So it looks like people, what they do prefer is to have some kind of flexibility, rather be completely remote, hybrid on-site, mostly on-site. So just kind of give you a snapshot of what the environment looks like out there right now. Okay. Activity, first thing in the morning. Who loves an activity? We need to get their brain cells going. So what we're going to do, we're going to split into groups. If you see along the wall, there's some paper that you can write, and there's markers on there. And what I want you to do is to get us to start thinking as a group. Write words or phrases describing the challenges and benefits that you envision as a supervisor of an off-site work environment. So you're going to take about 5 minutes, split in groups of 5 or 6, find a paper, there's markers in the front, and you'll just put a line down the middle like it says pros and cons. You'll put challenges and benefits, and it's just kind of to get us to talk, you know, what right now, what is our feeling of how we see off-site work. So just split, take some time to, you know, discussing amongst each other what you see, and then we'll kind of touch base after that. So you can just, there's markers in the front, so let's get up and work. Let's go. So what I'm going to do now is ask somebody from each team to give me 1 or 2 from your challenges side and 1 or 2 from your benefits side, just so we can kind of hear everybody's thoughts, what's going around. So right here, team 1, I'll name you team 1. Go ahead, 2 challenges and 2 benefits.
2 challenges would be monitoring efficiency and maybe some technology issues with using your personal phone, maybe internet not being as good as at work. And benefit is employee morale and work-life balance.
Okay. Group 2, 2 pros or cons. Maybe if you have something different. Urban challenges. If you can choose 1 or 2, whichever you.
One of the pros is a pro we've listed potentially of saving money, not just personally, but at the college level. Okay. The gas, the wear and tear on the vehicle, the utilities at the campus itself may not need to be used as much. The con, FOMO, the fear of missing out.
Oh, okay, that's different.
Not just missing out with the culture and your colleagues, but that feeling of putting the appearance that you're actually working. You want others to perceive that you're doing your work, and it's harder for them to actually know that you are.
Okay, good. All right. Team 3.
I don't know if this has been said, I couldn't hear it there. How about economic and time saving for a pro?
Okay.
And then probably a con would be transparency and communication.
Okay, that's good. Next team.
So we talked about a pro making us current, and that kind of time to improve recruiting and then improve employee retention. And then for cons, we talked about similar kind of FOMO, fewer opportunities for organic connection with other people, and then the risk of like performance slide. Yeah.
Good, good. And our last team.
For opportunities as far as pros, being able to meet students where they are, so increasing virtual services and also less interruptions during the workday. For cons, liabilities like increased risk management, things like that, and also increased oversight, being able to identify generational gaps amongst teams like technology skills.
Okay, good, good. Yes, great, great, everybody. You can have a seat now. Good job. So this next slide pretty much kind of has kind of the things we're going to talk about, which are usually the highlights of the challenges and the benefits, which many of you talked about. And I think when many of us already know this, and it's kind of in the forefront of what we see could be the challenge or benefits of an off-site work environment. And so some of those that you discussed were communication, performance management, team building, collaboration, managing employees, technology, and then some of those benefits are work-life balance, overall well-being, health, mental, talent acquisition, retention, which I heard someone discuss, productivity and efficiency increases, and job satisfaction. And so the next slides, I'm going to kind of break that down a little bit more. What does that look like? Go ahead. What does that look like in detail, and how can we work through those? So communication, lack of responsiveness to emails and phone calls. So that could be a challenge. Are they going to answer their phone when they're at home? You know, how quick? Is it going to be an hour or 2 hours later? 2 hours later, how are we going to make sure that they have all those tools and resources to be able to do that? Are they going to have a headset? Are they going to have WebEx? You know, what are my standards for when they're working from home? So that could be a challenge. Messages can be easily misunderstood. So you're using a WebEx chat. You know, what you say sometimes when you're typing, the tone can be misconstrued of what you're trying to say or in that email. So how do we make sure that we are being intentional in what we write when we're chatting quickly on those chats? Another one that I heard, team cohesion, communication. How we're going to have that same type of team feeling when they're off-site, or when we have several people off-site and the days are trading off. What can we do to maintain that, like activities, things of that nature? The next challenge, performance management. How do we evaluate performance? Many of you talked about that. It's different, like I think Terry said, when they're at home, we don't have that oversight at their home. So how do we evaluate that performance? Will it be through metrics? Will it be through KPIs, metrics? So that can be a challenge, and for our supervisors and for us as employees, feeling that our supervisor may not trust what we're doing at home. Stress factors and interruptions, that could be a challenge. You know, maybe we need to set the expectation that we are off-site, that you know, we're not there to be a babysitter. We're still there to work, making sure we have someone there to watch our child, still take them to daycare. We have pets at home. We want to play with the pets, or the pets jump in when you're in a Zoom call, things like that. And then the stress, right? Yes, you're off-site, but you can still have stress because you feel maybe the pressure that I have to make sure I'm productive. I may have to make sure I sit there in front of my laptop the whole time, so if a call comes in or a ping comes in, I don't miss it. And how are we as supervisors going to make sure that they feel that you know, it's okay if you got up to go use a restroom, you know, you don't have to sit there the whole time. So that can be a stress factor as well for the employee. A lack of a routine that optimizes productivity. I think I heard someone talk, you know, when you're at the campus, you're there, someone sees you there physically and sees that the work you're doing. So how are we going to make sure that they have a routine at home that optimizes their productivity, that they're doing the most that they can do? You know, maybe having, making sure they meet their deadlines, those types of things to make sure that they're, you know, optimizing their time off-site. Team building and collaboration. Gaps in sharing of information. If someone is off-site, you know, how are we going to make sure that, let's say I decide, you know, oh, something came through, Dr. Annette sent me, but I have 5 members that are off-site. Sometimes, you know, out of sight, out of mind, which I kind of talk about. If they're not there, I might forget to share that information, and they come back to next meeting, I'm like, well, I never heard about that. When did that happen? So making sure that we're intentional as supervisors when something does come up, you know, put it in that email or put it in a chat so that there is no gaps in that sharing of information for those employees who are off-site. Difficulty maintaining relationships with coworkers. Again, you know, you're off-site, it might be one day, but you know, what if you have one day and then the next you have 2 vacation days and it's a holiday, so you don't see someone for 5 days or 6 days. So how do we maintain that relationship with coworkers? And, you know, maybe having like a virtual chat room where, you know, you can meet, you know, once a week or something, just anybody that's off-site, and just kind of have like a game or something, so that you can maintain that relationship with coworkers. Or being intentional when you do have everybody back on site, that day, and you've noticed, you know, there have been several people out for vacation, setting, you know, like a little 30-minute meeting, or a little, let's just get together, how was your week? Just something so that you can continue that collaboration and team building. And then time as a team. Like I said, if someone is out for 5 or 6 days and you have important information, you know, your calendars are already booked with your everyday tasks. So then how are you going to have time to set a meeting with everybody? So we really have to become more intentional when our employees are off-site, or we have an off-site environment, and everybody's calendars, sharing calendars with your employees. Myself, I share my calendar with my with my employees, and I share my calendar with my boss. You don't have, of course, we have things you can put private on there. That way we can see what's going on in everybody's week and set that time as a team to make sure that we continue with the team building, the collaboration, because it can be difficult. But again, it's being intentional. We really have to be intentional and think ahead of the continuation of building those, the team and having time as a team and collaborating. Go ahead, next one. Managing employees. Switch off between home and work. That can be a challenge. So now you're at home, it's 5 o'clock, you're like, oh, you have a non-exempt employee. They want to continue working 30 more minutes because they're at home. You're not going to know, right? So how are we going to make sure that we set those standards of what their core hours at home and make sure that they feel that, if it's 5 o'clock, go ahead, you turn off your computer, you power it off. Or if you really need to stay and continue working 15 minutes, if you're a non-exempt employee, let me know. Keep us in the loop of what's going on. So making sure that we set the standards as supervisors, that they understand that, you're still 8 to 5, you still take your lunch break, don't work through your lunch. You can have you can have your break, things like that. Again, we kind of talked about this out of sight, out of mind. When your employees, after you do it for a few months and everything's going well, your employees are exceeding in their off-site work, you can kind of forget about them. You can kind of forget that you have 5 people working from home. So making sure you're intentional where you have your schedule and you have something that shows what employees are off on Tuesday or what employees are off on Thursdays, and in your chat saying good morning, hope you have a great day. If you need anything, I'm here. So that way that they know, you know that they're at home, and if they need anything, they can come, they can ping you. So they don't feel like they're lost or they're forgotten, and then you forget about them and you forget to check in on them. Scheduling meetings, I kind of talked about that earlier, about being intentional and scheduling those meetings. How do I make room for that time to schedule meetings? Technology is another big one. Reliable and secure internet access. When you set your expectations for your employee, that's one of the big things we need to make sure, if you're accepting this benefit of working off-site, you have to have that reliable technology. Let's say their power goes out, there's a storm. What is your expectation of them as an employee? Let you know, and if it's been 30 minutes and you're without power, no Wi-Fi, are you going to let them just stay home that day? Or is an expectation going to be in your template that, if you're out longer, you have to come back to work on site? You have an hour to get back to work if it's early in the morning, or if it's 4 o'clock, take the day off, the rest of the hour. So what are you going to have in place for those challenges that may come from that within your template? Again, I talked about phone access, making sure all your employees have a headset or some type of communication, something that they can use that they feel comfortable for Zoom meetings, answer phone calls, answer chats, make sure that's part of that work expectation as well. That just because they're off-site doesn't mean they can't answer those phone calls. It's an expectation. And then just overall technical issues. What if, their iStar goes berserk? They don't have access to anything. It can be a challenge because they don't have IT at home. So how are they going to get that, corrected? Again, call IT, see if it can work. If not, what is your expectation for them to get that fixed? And then you see, I'm sorry. This is kind of just a snippet of the top 5 challenges of managing a remote team, which is kind of what we all talk about. Just again to reiterate what we say, developing trust towards remote work, implementing good and solid communication, monitoring and tracking productivity. Again, that goes back to your metrics. Promoting your company's culture. We can't forget to promote that culture, what our culture is, and that continues throughout the time period that we have an offsite remote environment, and then keeping security in place. Making sure that they understand, even if your spouse is there, if you're having a phone call with a student, having that confidentiality, having a place in your home where you can have those calls, and having, security with what you share, with your Wi-Fi, make sure it's a secure network, things like that. Benefits to off-site work. The big one, I think everybody knows, is work-life balance. Manage work and personal life. So now, you get to save 30 minutes. You can turn on your laptop at 8 o'clock. You have 15 minutes. You can be in your nice, comfy clothes, have your coffee, and be ready. Whereas when you get here at 8, sometimes, you have to walk to your car. Someone stops you. And then you get to your office, and that takes a little bit more time to get settled in. So that's a nice balance to be able just to, take a little bit of time and start working right away. Also, as supervisors, You have to have that trust and that relationship with your employees where, let's say an employee says, you know, my lunch is usually 11 to 12. Can I take lunch today from 10:30 to 11:30 because my child's having something at school for lunch and I'm 5 minutes? That gives them the opportunity for you to build that trust, to build that relationship, and they can have that work-life balance, right? You're giving them that opportunity to have that experience with their child. You know, they might be able to go outside for a 15-minute walk, you know, take a break. I know we have a beautiful campus at Tomball, but still at home, or they want to go water their garden, whatever it may be. That really makes a difference on having this off-site work environment that we're looking to strive to have for. Flexibility of schedule. What are you going to decide as a supervisor? Are you going to give them completely, like you have to choose Tuesday or Thursday, you're completely off-site at work, or is it going to be a flexible schedule? You know, they're still going to work on site. They prefer to work on site, but they want to work 7:30 to 4:30. What works best for them? Are you going to let them decide as a supervisor, or are you going to set that standard and say this is what it is? But still, either way, whatever flexibility that is, it's a benefit for them, right? It's a benefit that they may not have right now. That's definitely a benefit to off-site work. And then gratitude. When they have that work-life balance of their personal life, the flexibility of adjusting their schedule, they will have gratitude to you as a supervisor for being, you know, having trust in them and having that relationship to provide these benefits to them, that they have that gratitude for Lone Star, for you as a supervisor, for the work they do. So great benefits. Overall well-being. As we know, mental health and our physical health is very important. And being at home, it does help reduce burnout and stress. You don't get stuck behind an accident, right? You don't have the stress of maybe 10 people walking in at one time when you're in the middle of a project. So that in itself helps with the stress, with the burnout that happens maybe every day of the week. So that's a big plus for the benefit. Somebody talked about reduced commuting and savings, gas, time. That's a big one. Even if it's 1 day a week, it adds up, right? Or even in the summers when you have 2 days off during the week, you know, if you're doing off-site. So reduced commuting and savings, time. Time to recharge and inviting spaces. So at their home, they can find a place where they can have a candle on that maybe they can't have at work. They can have music on that's soothing for them that they might not be able to have at work. They can decorate their place the way they want. They have a room, a space, maybe not a cubicle. So that's time for them to recharge, an inviting space. They may have a garden in their backyard. So again, all of these three things help with their overall well-being for them to enjoy their off-site work. I heard someone talk about talent acquisition and retention. So once we are out there as a college and we say we have off-site flexibility as part of our culture, we will bring a pool of talented candidates who are eager to have that don't have that right now. So that's a really big plus. And I think us in HR, we have seen, I think some of you managers who have openings, seen a larger pool now because of that. It's starting to get out that we have off-site, we have the ability to have off-site work, and so that will attract those candidates, make your pools larger so that you can have a bigger pool to get that talent that you need for that position. And then less turnover. I think I heard Dr. Thomas talk about less turnover. So yes, definitely, if you know, there's not many companies out there that do that, or that have, you know, off-site, that have the vacation time that we have, that have the days that we have for holidays, and then you add off-site or flexibility. I mean, who's going to want to leave, right? You know, not many people. It's less, you know, of course we always do, but overall you add that extra benefit and it really helps with our retention. Next is productivity and efficiency increases. So you're at home, you're in a relaxed environment, less walk-ins, your efficiency and productivity, you're in your zone. You know, there's times when I close my door because I need to get this project done. So if I do that here at work, at home my productivity will be much higher because I'm in a relaxed environment. I'm more apt to focus on my tasks that I need to get done. You know, I can quickly, you know, knock those 10 things out quickly. And then time, using my time, more efficiency that I am at home because of all those distractions that are now less because of that. And then job satisfaction, increased motivation. So if I'm happy, if I have gratitude because I have all this, you know, because I have this off-site work and then I have these all these other benefits, my motivation to do my job well, to produce high quality of work, helps with, you know, making sure that all that work that I do on-site continues off-site, that there is no lag with what I produce out while I'm home. And then you feel valued overall. You know, I feel valued as an employee that you trust me to be off-site and that you trust me to do my work. And so I feel that value from you. And then I will output, you know, the productivity, the efficiency, and feel overall satisfied with my job. Next thing, so your role and your responsibility as a supervisor. Now that we know what the challenges are, what the benefits could be, how am I going to make sure that I manage my team? And one is, the hugest big one is setting work expectations. You know, that's really a big thing that we are promoting in HR. You've heard the chancellor talking about those expectations. So what is that going to look like in my template? You know, we have kind of our guide that's been set, but you can add to that. You can add, you know, measurable metrics. You know, maybe you can say, you know, for any emails and phone calls that you have on-site and off-site, you need to respond, you know, by the end of the day, anything that comes in by 3 o'clock. You can have a spreadsheet, you know, did they fail or did they meet those expectations? And it's okay if you don't. Things happen. You know, people walk in, and if it's a failure, that's not something to look bad on them. You have to make sure they're aware of that. It's just that, okay, what happened that day that we can fix so the next following day that doesn't happen where you fail and not able to answer those phone calls and emails. Because that's great customer service. We want to make sure that customer service continues even when we're off-site. So what are those measurable metrics going to look like? Department expectations, response time. That's kind of what I talked about right now. The response time. What are their expectations when they're off-site? Like I said earlier, if you call them or if you ping them on the chat, you know, you have to call me or respond within 30 minutes. Put that in your work expectations. What do you expect from them when they are off-site and you're trying to reach them? And then tools and resources. Do they have everything at home? Are you going to supply them with pens, a tablet? Make sure they have those basic needs that they need at home. A headset if they need that. And then any training. Kendry talked about the trainee earlier, you know, making sure that they do that training and they understand what their offsite work is supposed to look like so that they can be successful in that. Open communication, trust. Again, us as supervisors, it's gonna take time, right? You know, are we gonna fail? Maybe will it fail? It can. You know, it definitely can not go the way we want, and that's okay. But letting your employees know that we're gonna try this for 6 months, see how it goes. We can always iterate what we've set in place. It's not set in stone. So making sure that we have that trust and they understand that. The transparency, accountability, you know, what are we going to do if they are not meeting those goals? What are we going to do if they're not meeting their metrics? What are we going to do if they don't respond? Have the conversations, have a meeting, make sure we document that, and make sure that they're aware that, you know, if I see a pattern, then maybe offsite's not the best thing for you. You know, we're going to have to take time, let's stop this, and then we'll see if we can go back to that. And that's okay. You as a supervisor have that privilege to say it's not going to work and we're going to stop that. So making sure that we have that accountability that continues and that we're transparent on what we expect of them as employees. Provide and seek feedback. Ask them for their suggestions. Make iterations, like I said, throughout the time. You know, what do they see the offsite, you know, getting their input. And then performance evaluations. That's a great time to kind of go over how is offsite working? You know, what suggestions do you have? Do you feel it's working for you? Do you prefer to come back on site? How am I doing as a supervisor? That's one of the great times when you're doing your performance evaluation that I always ask my employees, how am I doing? What do I need? Do I need provide you with more tools, resources, training? And so this is a great time to have those conversations. It should be going throughout the year. I do a mid-year touch base with them, and then I do my annually. So that's a great time to seek their feedback for you and for each other. Go ahead. Regular check-ins, making sure we have those daily, weekly meetings. Your team, one-on-ones. Are you having one-on-ones? Yes, I understand we're all busy, but it's just a 30-minute, just to have a quick meeting. What are your goals? What's working? How's your workload? You know, do you feel it's too much when you're off-site? So it's very important to be intentional and set those. Set your calendar for this, you know, for the fall, spring, the fall and spring. Have the WebEx team chats. You know, what are going to be your ways of communicating when they're off-site? So making sure that we continue and are intentional with those check-ins. Flexibility. So they're at home. There's an emergency. Emergencies happen. We as supervisors have to make sure that if we're building that relationship and there's trust, there's grace, right? Things happen, and we have to give grace just as we would want grace from our leaders. And so making sure that we have that and understand that emergencies happen, you know, they have to leave or log off for the day or whatever it may be, but we have to be consistent. We can't do that just with one employee. We have to make sure that we're consistent with all employees. And the same thing, kind of tying back to performance management, if we notice that, you know, every now and then at 4 o'clock, they're telling you their Wi-Fi went off, and that's happened for 3 times in the last month, how are we going to handle that, right? We have those conversations, and that we're consistent, and we have that meeting and say, okay, what's going on? You know, why is this happening? I notice that it's every day at 4 o'clock, every Friday. You know, I can't do that anymore. I let it happen once. I gave you that grace, but now you have to use your time, or now you're, you know, we might have to not do this. You know, so making sure we're consistent about that and giving them grace. Okay, well, now we're going to wrap it up with an activity. So what you're going to do is go back to your little sheets you did, and you're going to get one of those challenges, whatever challenge, you know, kind of talk through like how you can manage some of those challenges and change it into a solution. What are you going to do to change that challenge into a pro or a benefit for the employee? So take a quick 5 minutes and go back to your group and, you know, interruptions or facilities or technology. What are you going to provide them so they're successful? So take one of those challenges real quick and change it to a positive for offsite. What con are you going to change to a benefit or work on working?
Was delayed response times.
Okay.
And then the solutions were to set expectations, but make them clear, simple, and clearly communicated. You want to align them to the job, so not providing something that your subordinates really should be doing.
Okay.
And then make sure that it's followed up with physical, like in-person communications, as you were talking about the one-on-one check-ins. Follow up with email, and then Dr. Jeanette brought up a good point. It's super important to make sure that with the communication that you're adding via email, if there's like an action requested or a deadline or the importance notice, so that when they're off-site, everyone's on the same page as far as the communication response time.
Woo, that's great. That's really good. Okay. Next group.
So we chose risk of performance slide. So, you know, thinking about if people like strategically design their day where their flex day was their lightest day, right? So I'm gonna flex on Tuesdays, and I'm gonna try to not have meetings on Tuesdays. As an example,
Yes.
Something that somebody could do. So we thought about kind of like a flex work cheat sheet where even if your flex day is a lighter day, that there is something that you create for yourself, almost like a checklist that you walk through, like did I respond to all of my emails today? Did I follow with any requests from students? Were there any projects that I worked on? So even if it was a light day in terms of meetings, you're able to look back and say, well, I did all of these things, and I was able to create or produce or fulfill or accomplish these specific things.
That's perfect. Great job. Great job. Next group.
Yeah, ours is under team engagement and accountability, and generally through one of 3 different ways of communication, depending on the situation at hand, whether we're trying to find out something, information quickly, or we can wait and say an hour or something like that. But generally, WebEx Teams is our primary focus. We either do it through our, I don't know how everybody else does it, but we either do it as a team conversation, but we can also break it down to individual conversations if it's per individual working on particular projects, or I have questions that we need to discuss ourselves. And then the other one is text messaging if we need to get a hold of somebody directly.
Okay.
And then of course email, just back and forth, because we might, and also tickets, since we are working with tickets, we also
that's a good one.
communicate through ticket system. So those are the things that we primarily use, and then also Trello, because we can see the updates. One of the things is making sure our technology is up to date and accountable for being able to communicate back and forth. So
Good.
those are primary.
That's a good one. Next team.
We looped together 2 challenges of personal distractions and managing productivity. One of the solutions to this is we talk about having regular check-ins, not so much meetings to discuss work,
Right.
but just check-ins on how you're doing.
Okay.
Are you functioning okay? Kind of a mental health checkup. Having schedule transparency and the ability to identify your highest productivity times. I mean, if you're taking every Wednesday is your flex day, is it because there's an issue? Is it because what have you? As long as we know when you'll be more productive. You'll know when you'll be more productive, so we can
That's a good
work together to understand what's going to work best. And again, clear expectations kind of goes with just the regular check-ins. Know what we expect. Know what you expect of us as your supervisor, as your manager. Just communicate a lot better to understand what's actually happening.
Good, good. And our last group.
They actually took ours.
Usually happens.
We went with our challenge of monitoring efficiency. And so when you were talking, the idea of, just the idea that we all live by our calendar, and even whatever employees work offsite on Tuesday, have that short check-in. It could be 15 minutes, 20 minutes to say, how did it go today? Were you able to accomplish all your things today? How can I have helped or been more helpful to you in this, today? And just have that on the calendars, reoccurring, which also brought me to, we're gonna have a one-on-one anyway. Maybe that one-on-one is on the day that they are working.
That's a good one.
From off-site, that your one-on-one is on your off-site day. So that forces me to have to connect with you on your off-site day.
That's a good one. Great job, everybody. Great job. I see a lot of great minds working. Okay. I think that's it. All right. Yeah. Any questions or anything? While you think, if you have any questions, I just want to give you a little bit of history, kind of. I don't know if many of you are aware, but HR has been doing their off-site work since June. We started 2 weeks after the chancellor approved it. So, and we have the option to do either Tuesday or Thursday. And if you're not aware of that, I think that's a good thing, because that's what we want. We want our customers to feel like we're always available, right? Even if we're off-site. They shouldn't have that feeling that nobody's ever not there to help them. So making sure that's the expectation, that even if you're off-site, nothing changes. Your work productivity stays the same, your communication stays the same, your responsiveness stays the same. You should be able to be reached instantly or pretty much. And then, when you are off-site, I don't know if some of you have noticed, but on our doors, we have a sign that says, we're either out to lunch or we're not in for the day, we're off-site. And there's QR codes on there. If you need HR, scan for the snow ticket, scan this to get to a chat. So there's always somehow for them, the student or your supervisor or your employee, to have that connection and that communication. So thinking of things of that, so that there is no interruption or disruption in the service that we're providing to our stakeholders, to our students, to our ourselves, things like that. Any questions? Anything? Yes, ma'am.
Question. Is there a plan to add any kind of notes in the job descriptions about certain positions will be open to flex work, or?
Not necessarily on the job description. I believe it's just out there on the policy that we have that option, but not on the job description. I think it's because not everybody's doing it right now. So I think that's the issue. Good question.
I got probably more a comment. So in our group, we were talking about monitoring efficiency. So your flex day is Tuesday, and in our example we talked about was maybe an end of day check-in, like 4 o'clock or something like that. Check-ins, things of that nature. Okay. I'm just thinking out loud. So if you've been in a meeting with me when I start doing this, we don't know what direction it's going.
I'm literally just sitting here thinking, I have no idea.
While I understand the individual is not working on site, the assumption or expectation is they're doing their job even though they're not on site.
Correct.
Well, if I were here on site and every Tuesday Dr. Nutt wanted to have check-ins with me every Tuesday, I'd go crazy. You'd feel, you almost feel like being micromanaged, right? And so it's kind of like,
I do it if you don't do it.
say, help me, sir. There you go. Right. What you're saying, right? There you go.
Well, I do something extra when someone's off-site when the expectation remains the same regardless of where you're at.
Right.
I don't do it for on-site.
But you go by down the hall and you say good morning every day, right?
I'm not checking in on y'all.
No, it's not. But it's not. But that's what I'm. No, but you can still say on a chat good morning. You see what I'm saying? You can still say in a chat good morning, and that you're acknowledging them that day. It's not necessarily, let's say, a check-in.
With a devil emoji.
Yes, right. Lucky you at home today. That kind of thing. So just saying good morning on the chat is kind of like informal check-in kind of thing, it doesn't have to be a formal check-in, but
No, that makes sense.
okay, does that make sense? Yes.
I'm gonna offer. I wonder too if, going back to what we shared,
Mhm.
I think if you see that somebody is their schedule is consistently open on for me that's different.
Mhm.
If you've got 4 meetings on your calendar every Wednesday, right? Like you've got a standing meeting and you're flexing, I'm not quite sure I need a check-in, right? I think
Right.
the check-in comes when you noticed a pattern where somebody doesn't have things on their calendar, right? So they're flexing on Wednesday, I pull up their calendar and there's nothing scheduled. I think that is where it could probably trigger some concern. So something I was thinking about as we were talking, and I try to do this, is this time block, right? So even for my own
Yeah, I do that.
organization, in terms of my day, like putting on my calendar from 9 to 10, I'm working on this particular project, right? Or 11 to 2, I'm working on scholarship committee work. So
Yes.
if we've got employees that are in that space where
That's their day to do that.
yeah, I mean, and it gives us, as opposed to having to check in,
To see.
I can click on my calendar and see, here are all the things that Jackie is doing on this day that are tied to his job.
That's a good
I may
one.
not have any meetings on Tuesday, but
That's a good
from 9
point.
to 11, I'm working on employee experience scholarship. From 11 to 12, I'm checking emails and responding to students, right?
Right.
So it's just a simple strategy I think our employees can use, and
That's true.
it's a good accountability mechanism as well,
Yeah.
where you may not be concerned that somebody's not working.
Right.
You at least know they've got 3 or 4 things you can check in on them. Maybe not every week, but in your
Right.
bi-weekly one-on-one, your monthly one-on-one.
That's a good. And then another good thing that you brought up about meetings is, we need to set the expectation that our employees know that just because you're at home doesn't mean you can't do a meeting WebEx or Zoom, right? Like that, our expectation has to be if somebody requests a meeting, you accept that. And then also, if it's your offsite day, are there going to be times when you have to miss out on that day? I have an HR meeting on my Thursday that I am offsite. I have to miss on my offsite day. There are going to be times when you're not going to be able to have that privilege on that day because it is a privilege. So, yeah. Anything else? Anybody? Yes, ma'am.
I just think if you're having routine meetings with your direct reports, that you could do the check-in then.
Yeah.
How did that go? What's going on?
Yeah, and just like I talked about, performance evaluation, that's the time too, or your weeklies, your monthlies, whatever it is. Yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. Yes, Ms.
The
Natalie?
only thing I would say is that would be a challenge with employees that don't have specific projects, don't have specific meetings, that are actually the front-facing people that are actually dealing with students, right? So if I had someone in my department, I could say that today is going to be your day on live chat, right? Short of that,
Exactly.
there would be minimal projects or meetings that they would necessarily be involved in. Just saying.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's true. Anything else? Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for participating. I appreciate it being here. Thank you.